Jesus, a name that has transcended time and space, echoing through the corridors of history. The name echoes through history, resonating in the hearts and minds of millions. He is a central figure in Western civilization, a beacon of faith and a symbol of hope for countless generations. But who was he really, beyond the divine image? Who was the man from Nazareth? Most know him as Jesus Christ, the Son of God, the Savior of humanity. To historians, he is Jesus of Nazareth, a man who lived in first-century Palestine, a time of great turmoil and change. Jesus lived in a time of Roman rule, a period marked by oppression and unrest. His birthplace, Nazareth, was a small village in Galilee, a humble beginning for a man who would change the world. We know little of his early life, shrouded in mystery and obscured by the sands of time. The Gospels, the main source of information about him, focus primarily on his adulthood, leaving his childhood largely unexplored. Despite limited historical data, we can piece together a picture of this enigmatic figure through the fragments left behind. What we find is a man who challenged the status quo, a revolutionary thinker who dared to question the established norms. His teachings were radical for their time, advocating for a new way of living and thinking. He preached love, forgiveness, and compassion, values that resonated deeply with those who heard him. His message resonated with the common people, offering them hope and a sense of purpose. But it also attracted the attention of the Roman authorities, who saw him as a threat to their power and control. His life and teachings would ultimately lead to a confrontation that would change the course of history. To understand Jesus, we must understand his world. First-century Palestine was a melting pot of cultures and religions. Judaism, the dominant faith, was divided into various sects. The Pharisees, known for their strict adherence to the law, were influential. The Sadducees, often associated with the priestly class, held power in the temple. The Essenes, a more reclusive group, lived separately, pursuing purity and righteousness. Jesus was born into this complex religious landscape. He would challenge the interpretations of the religious leaders. His teachings emphasized love over legalism. This put him at odds with the religious elite. They saw him as a threat to their authority. His growing popularity only fueled their suspicion. The Bible, particularly the New Testament, is the primary source of information about Jesus, but other historical texts mention him. These non-biblical sources corroborate his existence. Roman historian Tacitus, writing in the 2nd century, mentions Christus, who was executed by Pontius Pilate. Jewish historian Josephus also refers to Jesus. He describes him as a wise man and a miracle worker. These extra-biblical accounts, though brief, are significant. They provide independent confirmation of Jesus' existence. They place him firmly in the context of his time. While these sources don't provide as much detail as the Gospels, they are valuable pieces of the puzzle. They offer a glimpse of how Jesus was perceived by those outside his immediate circle. The Bible tells us little about Jesus' childhood and young adulthood. These years, often referred to as the hidden years, are shrouded in mystery and intrigue. These hidden years have been the subject of much speculation and scholarly debate. Historians and theologians alike have pondered what Jesus' life was like during this time. What was he like as a child? Was he curious and playful like other children of his age? Did he have friends with whom he shared his thoughts and dreams? What were his formative experiences? Did he help his father, Joseph, in the carpentry workshop? Did he learn the value of hard work and craftsmanship from a young age? Some apocryphal texts, not included in the Bible, attempt to fill in the gaps. These texts offer a glimpse into what might have been, though they are not considered canonical. The Gospel of Thomas, for example, depicts Jesus as a child prodigy performing miracles. These stories paint a picture of a young boy with extraordinary abilities. While intriguing, these accounts are not considered historically reliable. Scholars often view them with skepticism, questioning their authenticity and accuracy. What seems clear is that Jesus grew up in a devout Jewish home. His family would have observed the traditions and customs of their faith, instilling in him a deep sense of spirituality. He would have received religious instruction from an early age. Learning the scriptures and the teachings of the Torah would have been a fundamental part of his upbringing. He learned the scriptures and the traditions of his people. This education would have provided him with a strong foundation in the religious and cultural practices of his community. These early influences shaped his worldview. The lessons he learned and the values he absorbed during these formative years would later resonate in his teachings. They laid the foundation for his later teachings. The wisdom and knowledge he gained as a young boy would become evident in his profound messages and parables. We can only imagine the experiences that molded him into the charismatic leader he became. The hidden years of Jesus remain a fascinating and enigmatic chapter in the story of his life. Section 5. The world Jesus knew. Jesus' world was one of political and social unrest. Roman occupation was a source of resentment for many Jews. They longed for a Messiah, a leader to liberate them from Roman rule. The Jewish people themselves were divided. Different factions held varying views on how to relate to Rome. Some advocated for peaceful resistance, others favored armed rebellion. In this tumultuous environment, Jesus emerged with a message of love, forgiveness, and peace. He challenged the religious and political authorities of his day. His teachings transcended the political and social divisions of his time. He offered a message that resonated with people from all walks of life. Section 6. A revolution of love. Jesus' message was revolutionary. He preached love for one's enemies. He emphasized forgiveness and compassion over retribution. This radical message challenged the status quo. He called for a transformation of the heart, not just outward observance of religious laws. He taught that true righteousness came from within, not from external rituals. This message resonated with the common people. They were drawn to his message of hope and love. His teachings offered a different way of living, one based on compassion and forgiveness. His emphasis on love was not limited to one's own group. He taught that we should love our neighbors as ourselves, regardless of their background or beliefs. Section 7. Challenging the norms. Jesus challenged the social and religious norms of his time. He associated with outcasts and sinners. He reached out to the marginalized and the oppressed. He healed the sick and comforted the grieving. He spoke out against hypocrisy and injustice. His actions often put him at odds with the religious and political elite. He challenged their authority. He questioned their interpretations of the law. His message threatened their power and influence. His radical teachings and actions ultimately led to his arrest and execution. But even in death, his message continued to spread. Section 8. Was Jesus married? In recent years, there has been a renewed interest in the question of Jesus' marital status. This topic has sparked considerable debate among historians, theologians, and scholars alike. Some scholars point to subtle hints in the Gospels that suggest he may have been married to Mary Magdalene. They argue that certain passages, when read in a particular light, imply a close and possibly marital relationship between Jesus and Mary Magdalene. These scholars argue that such a union would have been in line with Jewish customs of the time, where marriage was a common and expected part of adult life. They suggest that Jesus, as a Jewish man, would have likely followed these societal norms. On the other hand, there are scholars who maintain that the evidence for Jesus' marriage is inconclusive. They point out that the Gospels do not explicitly mention a wife, and that the references to Mary Magdalene can be interpreted in various ways. These scholars argue that the Gospels focus primarily on his public ministry, his teachings, and his miracles, rather than his personal life. They believe that the absence of clear evidence suggests that Jesus was likely unmarried. The debate continues, with scholars interpreting the available evidence in different ways. Some look to non-canonical texts and historical context for clues, while others rely strictly on the canonical Gospels. The question of Jesus' marital status, while intriguing and the subject of much speculation, does not diminish the power and relevance of his teachings. His message of love, forgiveness and compassion remains central to Christian faith. Whether or not he was married, his teachings continue to inspire millions of people around the world. His emphasis on love, forgiveness and compassion transcends the details of his personal life, offering a timeless message that resonates across cultures and generations.